It's 8:41, Big 550, KTRS. She has not been on this show enough, and now she's leaving us. Jennifer Joyce, Circuit Attorney, thanks for joining us. Welcome to Big 550, KTRS.
Hi, I'm happy to be here. How are you doing?
You betcha. You're retiring, and you're going to buy a Winnebago and travel the world, right?
Yeah, but I got another year to go still.
All right.
Lots to do.
Before you do that, you have an impossible decision you have to make about this case that burst onto the scene last week where this 60-year-old man pulled out a gun and shot this boy rummaging in his car. And we certainly don't expect you to talk about it here, but we wanted to get you on at least to talk about the Castle Doctrine as you see it, because it is very confusing. So how do you read the Castle Doctrine?
Well, it is confusing. Basically, in Missouri law, and it's not the easiest set of laws to understand, but basically, if you have a reasonable belief that you are about to experience the use or imminent use of unlawful force on your property, you're allowed to use deadly force in response, and you don't have a duty to retreat. That's basically what the law is in Missouri. So if someone is in your yard, or it is even holds true if you're in your car and someone attacks you in your car, the Missouri gun laws in most situations there will say that you have the right to use deadly force. It's very fact intensive. It turns on the issue of whether your fear of the imminent use of unlawful force was reasonable.
So you and I are talking about this on a Friday at 8:42, but in the heat of the moment, what's reasonable to you and me at 8:42 on a Friday might be different to somebody when they're faced with something like this at 3 o'clock in the morning.
That's correct, and it's really a very factual determination, and it's a call that the prosecutor makes after reviewing all the facts involved in the case.
So in the city, many people don't have garages, and they park on the street. What's if someone I see robbing my car on the street in front of my house? Does the Castle Doctrine then transfer to my car on the street?
Not if you're in your car, it does. If you're in your house watching that, it does not.
But it would if it's in my backyard.
Correct.
That's
yes,
yeah.
And the Castle Doctrine. It's. I know a lot of people feel strongly about it. I had some reservations about it when it was first promulgated by the legislature, and I think we as Missouri prosecutors really missed an opportunity. Some of us were pretty vocal against it, but we missed an opportunity to refine it a little bit better, because it does lend itself to situations like the one that you just laid out in your hypothetical that don't seem to make a lot of sense.
How often, since it's been passed, have you had to deal with it, or how often has it been invoked since you've been county circuit attorney?
Many times. It's something that has prevented us from prosecuting many firearm deaths. So, rightly or wrongly.
Right.
But the application of the law, it's, as you know, McGraw, it's not my job to say whether a law is a good law or a bad law. I'm not a member of the legislature, so I don't pass the laws. I have to enforce the laws that are on the book.
So you're saying
the Castle Doctrine causes us to not be able to prosecute a lot of different firearms deaths.
So you're saying if this law wasn't passed, you would have probably brought charges on some cases where you couldn't because the law had changed? Possibly,
yes. I do think so, yeah.
In this story specifically, I'm going to ask, and you can choose not to answer, as you well know. Why is it taking so long, and or what are you waiting for to make your ultimate decision?
Well, I want to make sure that I've looked at everything personally in this case, and we've had investigators reviewing things. We've been doing a very extensive search of not just the law in Missouri, but in other states to see if there's anything similar that could provide some arguments in this case. And I want to understand it, in as much as I possibly can. So, and then I'm going to sit down with my staff and talk about it and see what conclusions we reach. So that is what we are working on right now.
Do you have any timeline as to when you'll ultimately make this decision?
Well, I'd like to do it as soon as possible. Hopefully, in the next week or so would be my goal. I don't see any point in hanging around with this any longer than we need to. But by the same token, I don't ever want to rush into something just because people are impatient for an answer. investigations like this, decisions like this, require thoroughness and carefulness and a methodical approach that does take some time.
Yeah. You, as we started the conversation, you are retiring and not planning on facing the voters again. Not that that would ever change your opinion, but you are retiring. And so does that in any way, shape, or form free you to make a more true decision based on the facts?
It does not. I've always made decisions based on the facts, and I, have been successful over my 16 years as prosecutor of pretty much making everybody mad at me at some point or another. I mean, I just call it as I see it, and I've always done it that way. I think that to the extent that my decision not to seek re-election has affected me, I think that it's affected more my willingness to discuss my true opinions about stuff more so than I had before. But it does not affect my decision-making process.
Jennifer Joyce, you're always welcome here. When you do make a decision, we'd love to have you back to find out exactly why when you can answer more questions and we can ask more questions.
I'd be happy to. Thank you, McGraw.
You got to talk to you soon, Jennifer Joyce.
Bye-bye.
Jennifer Joyce, circuit attorney, has to make that decision about that 60-year-old man using a gun and firing and killing a teenage boy who was rummaging in his car in his backyard. Stay tuned. We're going to check in with the Nestle Purina Big 550 KTRS Toy Drive at 9 o'clock from Chesterfield Valley on the Big 550.